Everybody, I'm Ian Con. Glad to have you back here for this our second of the series this year of Battlebots, which brings me to my first point. Is this series called Battlebots 2015, or is this series called Battlebots, and the first one was in 2015? So is this season 2 of Battlebots 2015, which is a little bit confusing, because it's not 2015. I get it, you just add, you can't add 2 to it, but, it's n minus, Yeah. But anyway, the point is that it's a little silly. In 5 years, we're going to still be doing Battlebots 2015. Okay, whatever. That's fine. So long as we know what to search for. Because, frankly, being as how I'm in Australia, you don't exactly get to watch these things on free-to-air. So I did have to search for the torrent. Unfortunately, it wasn't that easy to find. Firstly, I was searching for it before it was actually released, so that makes things a little bit more difficult to find. But when I did manage to wait until the thing was actually out there to be consumed, I was searching for Battlebots 2016, because the prominence of the 2015, I was thinking, what I was thinking? I was thinking, well, okay, they're going to increment the year it's on, each, that number, to match the year it's being recorded in. Call me a crazy person. But no, that didn't happen. So I'm fairly certain what we're going to have is Battlebots 2015, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4. That's fine. However, we do have a very big series this year. So by my calculations, just a quickie. There should be a total of 55 matches. Whether or not we'll see much of all of them is still up for debate. There were 4 this week that we only got to skim over. Frankly, I think they picked the right 4. They seemed like they were pretty average sort of matchups. So I think that, there's plenty of skimming room in some of these earlier grades. In terms of the actual matches, so we should have 24 matches in this first qualifying heats. Then we'll have of that, so it'll be 48 bots in 24 matches. Of those, we'll get 24 winners. Then we'll also get 8 wildcards of the losers, and between those, we'll have 32 bots for the round of 32. So that's not this week coming up, next week, so it'll be the week after that. So there's two weeks of qualifiers, followed by the week after, which is the round of 32. It's gonna be a big week, trying to fit 32 actual battles in. I think we're gonna have to do some skimming for the round of 32. If this was a 2-hour episode, which is fantastic. I love that they just went, screw it. You know what? Let's just do it for 2 hours. Hey, hopefully, I haven't heard either way. Hopefully, we're going to actually see another 2-hour episode. Certainly for the round of 32, that would be good if they could actually show most of those matches. So. So it'll be around 24 matches, and that'll be over the course of the 2 weeks following. The round of 32 might be over 2 weeks. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? That'd make a lot more sense rather than trying to do one massive long thing. Then there'll be 16 matches in the round of 32, 8 matches the week after, and then 4-1 up to the final. And I would imagine that the 4-1 will all be in a single week, as it was last time. Which brings us to our matches. Basically nothing else has changed, so the bots themselves have changed. So I want to go through a lot of the bots that we saw this week, but and some of the ways in which my impressions were dead set wrong. I thought I'd done my reading. Apparently there are a few people have contacted me saying that, hey, idiot, if you'd bothered to search the Reddit, you would have noticed that there were these people were posting that. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Full culpability, man. I thought I'd done my homework. But yeah, okay, so, you know, hey, keep contacting me, keep letting me know. I love to hear from you guys. So do tell me if there's any factual errors or otherwise you find in any of these videos or anything whatsoever, because it's much better to be correct and corrected than to have my incorrectness stand for all eternity. So I'd much rather clear anything like that up. But yeah, as I say, that brings us to the first of many rounds this week. Bronco versus Blacksmith. And look, the only thing I've written down here on the notes of the actual battle are, "Your hammer broke, you dummy." That's all I actually wanted to say to the dude. As soon as I was watching, I'm like, "Your hammer broke, you dummy." Anyway, it was not bad, but honestly, that's what you get on the first match. So it's the first seed versus the what would he be, the 48th seed. So I mean, it's always going to be a bit of a challenge to overcome that sort of thing. Match 2, Death Roll versus Captain Shrederator. It didn't have to be Australia versus America, but the opportunity was there, and so never wanted to miss some low-hanging fruit. So no matter how overripe it is, the network took the opportunity to create that particular false narrative. That's fine. I mean, I wasn't there for World War II or Vietnam, but I remember that, you know, we're not actually enemies. You know, maybe we are in the swimming or some other shit that doesn't matter. But I'll tell you the truth. America and Australia, we're mates. Shh, don't tell my lefty friends, okay? Because they don't want to know. Anyway, America versus Australia. So I have to bring up the cultural cringe issues. My wife was just like, "Oh, that's so embarrassing," and it is. I'm glad there's an Australian team there, but I didn't like that. Why does it have to have a novelty element? Why can't we just compete with a robot? Why did the vertical spinner have to be sort of shaped like Australia? Did anybody else there have their weapon shaped like their island? Did that help anybody? We hope that it... what was it? I didn't even write it down. Oh, the tail may help self-right is the... And that was before the match. She said that. And I was like, oh, well, you've obviously really tested this big bad boy out. Okay, this should be a real good match against Captain Shrederator. And it was exactly what you thought would happen, happened. The first hit that your death roll took, I was like, well, okay, hey, this thing might be all right. This thing might be actually better built than it looks. Turns out, no, I mean, you know, it's hard against a vertical spinner, even if it's a full body spinner. It's not easy to design things that will hold up, certainly not something that you want to be articulated. So this is the whole thing with the aesthetics and the art element. And I appreciate that people love that, and I'm glad that people do. It's not my end of things. I would have never spent the weight budget, you know, the money on shit like, you know, a tail that moves around to make it look like a crocodile. You've gone crazy, you know? Give it eyes or something cheap. Something that weighs nothing. Because in all truth, you don't need a gimmick like that. You know, you're Australian. That would have nearly been enough. You're in the Australian robot building community, and more power to you. Like, that's got to be close to enough. You don't have to paint the thing up like a giant tit, do you? You know? Anyway, look, more power to him, dude. I'd actually love to get in contact and you know, aside from having given their bot a little bit of shit, this is the thing. I mean, I always come into it with the attitude of, you're going to have to fight Tombstone, and you're going to have to fight Minotaur, who we'll get to in a minute. But Minotaur has all the issues of drum spinners, and, you know, this could be the year of the drum spinner. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Minotaur is drum spinners. We'll get to that. There's a few pages over. But for right now, match 2, Death Roll versus Captain Shrederator. Went to Captain Shrederator. What can I say? And yeah, turns out it didn't work out that well. The Brave and Stupid Award goes to Captain Shrederator. in the same vein as Tombstone last year with the whole "Do you want more?" and then having its guts spill all out over the arena in the semi-final. Yeah, he had Death Roll to rights. Death Roll wasn't moving. He went, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'll go in for one more. Let the crowd lead him down that garden path. Go, ooh, yeah, over time I'll be popular. Don't worry about being popular. Worry about winning. If you destroyed the bot on that last showboating thing on the first round, wouldn't you have felt like an asshole? Just, you know what I mean? Play smart. Just play smart. Don't get mountained. You know what I mean? You don't need that. Okay? You keep your distance. You've got him. He's bleeding to death over there. Just leave him. He's enormous. Don't worry about it. Just stay away. Anyway, so that was match 2. Match 3. Lucky versus Beta. Beta? Was it Beta? Did you hear how he pronounced it? Was it Beta? It wasn't Beta, was it? Do you think he meant to make a point that it was Beta? Was it Beta? It was Beta. I think it was Beta. This is an exact reason, this kind of match rather, is the exact reason why last week, a few days ago, when I spoke to you guys, it was about the idea that matches should go on as long as they have to. This was a great wrestling match. This was excellent grappling. This was the jiu-jitsu of the robot world in a sense, and that's fantastic. But I don't know. It just judging decisions are never that great to watch. They never are. But you can sort of, I don't know. There's pros and cons with it as well. I mean, I guess if the match goes on for too long, then before you know it, the more recent events way more heavily in the judges' minds than those ones from 5 minutes ago, let's say. And that sort of time would be enough to actually start that kind of an effect, having some effect, I suppose. So there's something to consider. But in general, I would say, yeah, this would be the type of thing where I'd love to watch that type of match just sort of go on a little bit longer until somebody does somebody some damage. But yeah, it was more entertaining, I thought, than it had any rights being, if that makes any sense. It was, it should have been a really just come on, change the channel. But it wasn't. It was really, really entertaining. It was a strange match. But yeah, I look forward to watching Beta. I think that's how you pronounce it. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it Beta? I think it's Beta. Beta? I look forward to watching Beta in the next match. Icewave versus Subzero. Here is Subzero. Now, Plane Zero. Yeah. As soon as there was a bot called Subzero, I was hoping it'd lose. I was just hoping it wouldn't win. So I could do the, here is Subzero. Now, Plane Zero. Yeah, they both broke. Honestly, attrition is a huge part of this. It is such a huge part of this. I'm seeing so many bots whose internals appear to be held in by the Perspex covers. And I'm not putting Tombstone past this either. When their guts hang out, nothing looks more viscerally awful, does it? Nothing looks like she's on her last legs now than when you see things dangling in very intestine-like things hanging out of their bellies. You'd think they'd start gathering them up and asking for their mothers next. It's bloody awful. But yeah, so when that does happen, there is that real worry that this thing's on its last legs, which isn't necessarily the case. I mean, it could be electrically sound. Just because the mounts have gone doesn't mean that the terminals will break as well. Although, I mean, it's never a good look. It doesn't look good for the judges if it goes to judging. And the extra pressure that those heavy-ass batteries are going to put on the terminals is never great. It's not designed for that. So, I think that this is the perfect example of why you can't use rigid mounts for things. You have to use things like zip ties. I'm noticing more and more inside the bots that everything is shock mounted on the Battlebots, but I'm not sure that even that is really is up there for a matchup against something like Minotaur. The amount of immediate acceleration that it seems to be able to give without destroying things by cutting them apart, just by making them break by giving it an uppercut. It's not like axe wielding. It's just got the worst uppercutting in living memory. So yeah, in the same way that if you could somehow cushion your brain against the inside of your skull, uppercuts wouldn't be so bad. If you could cushion the electronics against the inside of your robot, drum spinners aren't so bad. So that's something. But yeah, I mean, a rigid mounting of electronics and speed controllers and electronics, it just is... It's just not possible to rigidly mount something fragile in such a way. And if you try and shock mount them, they seem to just shake loose. So I don't know what the plan would be. I mean, my first thought is to use lots of different dimensions of high quality nylon or nylon with Kevlar in them zip ties in lots of different directions. But they're probably already doing that. I mean, those really high-quality ones are next to impossible to break. So if you added 4 or 5 of those per dimension, per direction of, per degree of freedom, if you like, of the whatever component you're trying to tie down, then you're starting to... I mean, yeah, they're a gram or so each, or a couple of grams each, but they are only a couple of grams each, not like the 20 or so grams that a nut and bolt would be. So... yeah, I would start to think about that kind of thing. But I mean, you're running up against the design limits of nylon, in a sense. Then, and if you're talking about having enough to be able to hold on to them in high load environments, high load situations, I should say, then you're talking about having sort of too many to provide much cushioning. In a way, even nylon's innate ability to stretch, it will then, if you only have so much of it and it's a dense thing you're trying to hold on, it'll just break. So there is that. But I certainly wouldn't be hard mounting anything. Which brings us to match 5. That was 10. Match 5. Ultimate Destructo versus Ringmaster. Okay. Well, I had a lot of good things to say about Ultimate Destructo. None of which included compliments on the frame strength, if you recall, which I'm glad I didn't make any bold predictions about how strong the frame was, because it got torn apart. It got just blown to bits. Look, I'm no welder, right? I have welded and I can weld, but I don't call myself a welder. In the same way that lots of people can play guitar, but they shouldn't call themselves guitarists. I can weld, I'm not a welder. That said, if my welds were as shitty as that dude's welds, I would be embarrassed that everybody saw that. Everybody saw your welds fail, man. Your bright green thing just got broken into terrible little pieces. Yeah, so the interchangeable weapons thing seemed like a good idea, and they really seemed disappointed. They seemed like really disappointed that they got out in the first round. They weren't expecting it. Again, I've said this to people in the past. I don't know if I've brought this up on this channel, but you really need to drop these things off of buildings. I'm not playing around. You need to build up a frame. Before you even commit to a frame idea, if it's something, you need to be able to build one of them. Start dropping it off of a ute traveling at 20 kilometers an hour or something like that. Start dropping it off a third-story building with ballast inside it to mimic what the actual stuff weighs. Find out where it breaks and reinforce it there. Do some crash testing. Try and break it with another robot. Part of the reason I've decided not to pursue all of this is, one, I don't currently have the money. But I mean, I could get the money. That's not the problem. I could, we could do this. But the trick is, to be competitive, you would have to build yourself an arena. You'd have to build yourself a giant steel arena so you get used to it and actually practice and refine this technique of driving a robot, or getting the robot to drive itself, which we'll get to later on too, in an environment which is nothing like asphalt and nothing like concrete. So you need to do that, and you'd need to build a couple of other types of robots. So you'd need to build a drum spinner test machine. Now, it doesn't need to be a mobile robot. What it needs to be is a drum that spins just like a drum spinner, and you can just casually drive your robot into it if you want to. See how your robot survives. Don't put all your expensive electronics in it. Just get a stick and poke it at it, or get a string and pull it from the other side of the room. Something. Stand behind a little shield. You get what I'm coming at here. If you've never hit your robot with a sledgehammer, what are you even doing? It's going to get hit with much worse than sledgehammers. So I'm not sure how much actual crash testing and non-destructive, or rather destructive testing of prototypes specifically designed to be crash tested for destructive testing purposes. I'm not sure how much of any of that goes into it. And this is another one of the reasons why I think it would be an expensive endeavor. In order to be competitive, which who would want to get into something like this without wanting to be really competitive? I mean, call me crazy. I think, yeah, you'd need to build your drum spinner test machine, your safe arena area in order to test and drive and practice this thing. You would need a horizontal spinner tester, you'd need a flipper bot tester, you'd need a... you get what I'm saying. You'd need to really put this thing through its paces, and you'd need to bring spares, plenty. So I really, yeah, it's a matter of treating this thing like a Formula 1 team, you know, or like a NASCAR team, you know, the analogy we were using before. Because it kind of has to be. If you want this machine to be your link between the human and winning, the machine can't fail. And if it fails one round and you manage to limp through, well, you have to have a spare to be able to immediately replace it and come back and just win the next one. So that's a factor as well. But yeah, so Ultima Destructo versus Ringmaster. Yeah, Ringmaster. Match 6. Overdrive. Now, some of these I've just been calling Overdrive 2. Which, when they have done significant enough redesigns, I'd like to see, just give it a version number, just for me, you know? Like this idea that you're just going to call it Overdrive every year? Really? That's not the same bot, dude. Daddy Daughter Day, which is, you know, what I used to call the robot from last year. Frankly, it's Daddy Daughter Day this year as well. I'm all for Daddy Daughter Day. Hey, I don't have a daughter. If I had a daughter, I'd be all for Daddy Daughter Day. So don't think I'm giving that whole thing shit. It's just, it's so touching to watch them lose, and I mean that in the most friendly possible sense. I don't mean to give them any shit. It's just that her poor little eyes, when she sees that the bot's not doing what it's supposed to do, she's got like this little expressive. She's only like, what is she, 10 or 11 or something, or 12, and she's got these little, oh my god, everything's just going wrong. This is not what and she just can't cope. It's the most genuine and honest response that I've seen recently. And so, I don't know, it's something so very, and Dad he's there going, well, we're doing our best, don't you worry, this is gonna be okay. It's like the dad, you know, in that Seinfeld joke where he's talking about, you know, there's always one on the Dodgem car ride, there's a dad and the kid, and they just don't seem to know what they're doing. It's going around in circles, and he's like, hey, here we go again, son. It's kind of like that. I love that they're in it. Hey, they've got a better robot than I do. I can't give any of these people genuine shit. Remember that. Before any of you leave comments going, what have you been? It's true. I have never built a robot. So I am a layman with an opinion, and that is all. And any one of these people would probably school me and whip me up and down upside the head for the entire point of going, you don't even know what you're talking about. And we had design considerations, and the fact that we couldn't spend $100,000 is why we couldn't build a robot the way you want to build a robot. The reason I haven't built a robot is because I don't have $100,000 to chuck at robots. These people probably don't either, and so they've built robots that don't cost $100,000. So there's going to be a lot of that. So definitely, please only ever take this as the most friendly and warm-hearted ribbing in the world. The last thing I want to do is discourage anybody. I think this is the most incredible pursuit that a person can be involved in. So doing badly at this, to me, is more noble an exercise than doing well at most other things. However, if I was to be involved in something, I'd like to do well at it. That's just me. Excuse me. So yeah, it's good to see one though that they've made that's not just made from leftover parts. Yeah, it's the way they sort of described it last year was, well, we had these bits and there was this vacuum cleaner and Angus MacGyver came to our house late in the afternoon, and the next day we were on our way to Robot Wars. Was sort of how they put it, you know. So yeah, Overdrive 2, I'm calling it, versus Escape Velocity. Flipper spinner combo. It's been a lot of these this year. Yeah. combos of two weapons at once. So this was an interesting flipper spinner thing. It was like the whole flipper comes up and then there's a spinner on the flipper. I'm not sure how that's all supposed to work. We didn't really get an interview with those guys, so I'm not 100% sure what their thinking was, you know, like what exactly were they, I don't know, what kind of an enemy was this designed for? What kind of a bot were they actually thinking this would be effective against? Either way. But yeah, either way, it escape velocity. It was pretty strong anyway. So this is the thing I've written here. Space dudes don't fuck around. Except when they do. So I had high hopes for Black Ice. I really did. I love NASA guys. I love pilots as well. I don't know how many of you out there actually know many pilots, personally. I know very few. Too few. I always wanted to be a pilot. I'll let you in a little secret just between you and me. I always wanted to be a pilot, and I'd still love to be a pilot. But sadly, they don't let you smoke marijuana and be a pilot. So sometimes we make our bed and we have to lie in it, which is all best for everybody. You don't want me doing this and then crashing into your roof because I fell asleep. It's the last thing anyone wants. So I'm going to stick to flight simulators and talking to pilots and about robots. Trick being, usually your NASA guys and your pilots are some of the most practical, I nearly did it, a reverse pun, down-to-earth people you'll ever meet, you know. But yes, they usually the things they build are well considered and well thought through, and they work really well. And I thought Black Ice would be just that kind of a bot. But in match 7, Tombstone did what Tombstone does. It was only skimmed over. It was only very quick. But there was no two ways about it. Tombstone did exactly what Tombstone does and tore holes in Black Ice. Yeah. Space guys don't fuck around. Know that it's Tombstone. So, yeah. Match 8. Farouk's Brazilian wax joke. Oh my god. Farouk. What? Mate. Last time. So, Photon Storm. Very Mohawk-like, you know, is that pincher situation where we're going to try and make it a pincher with a pointy thing, as though that's going to make that much difference. You're not going to get through any sort of armor. I mean, unless it's just got perspex on the outside, you're not really going to get through armor in any sort of a serious way. You might push through it or bend it a little bit, but look, I don't know, it doesn't need to be that sharp for all that. Versus Minotaur. The deadliest drum spinner in the world. Well, yeah, okay. I don't know how you're going to dispute that at this stage, because it looks like pretty freaking deadly to me. Besides, I think there's probably only... How many drum spinner robots are there in the world that could potentially be as powerful as it? Very few. I would hazard a guess, fewer than 10. And it seems to be the most powerful I've seen so far, although, yeah, we'll get to a few of the contenders later on, but, yeah. It is crazy. It's a sound all of its own, and yeah, I'm not sure how many of you sort of are paying that much attention to the sound. I don't know. I don't have a typical experience with my past as a sound engineer, but in general, I do pay attention to the sound, and that thing is not a normal thing that you'll usually hear. Obviously, it's being made by a physical object, and we're all very used to synthesizers now, so I think we overlook the craziness of some sounds over others, because we're used to sound effects in movies. I mean, even things like a sword hitting another sword is not the sound of a sword hitting another sword. It's the sound of 6 other things, all pasted together in Pro Tools. None of which has anything to do with a sword, most of which weren't even metal. So it's a constructed world of people stapling cats together when they need a horse on film because horses don't look like horses, that sort of thing. So I don't think a lot of people are going to realize just how crazy and awesome crazy that sound was. But anyway, it was. Which brings us to the most incredible thing about Minotaur. as it tried to spin around corners, as it tried to steer, something very, very cool happened. Gyroscopic precession. And I was like, why is it... I noticed that as soon as it started to turn to the left, it also wanted to pivot to the right. Because there's this incredibly high momentum thing up the front with gyroscopic precession. So you turn it like that, and it tries to yaw. If you try and yaw it, it's going to try and roll. And it's exactly what it did. So it turned to the right, and it went and tried to lift its outside leg up. It was quite... Its outside leg. Anthropomorphization again, folks. But what a nifty concept, that there's so much rotating mass up the front that it deeply changes how this 100-kilogram bot behaves as it goes around corners in what should be 2 dimensions. You know, it should be a flat surface around the arena, but it's, you know, obviously the thing has height itself, which, you know... But yeah, I found that to be quite the incredible little thing. Anyway, I hope you liked that as well. But yeah, obviously Minotaur shredded Photon Storm's ass. There's no point in don't even need to... Match 9. Chomp versus Disco Inferno. Best outfits so far. I'm not just saying that because I like suits. Although I do like suits, and they were good suits. I have dogs, so I can't really have a white suit unless I kept it for just special occasions, but then Battlebots probably wouldn't be the right one. Brings me to a side note. I went to this festival once. I was Rainbow Serpent. It must have been Rainbow Serpent 2013 or 12, 14, I don't know. Around then-ish. A gentleman, we saw him on the first day, in a white tuxedo, all white, pure white, just white. And he wore that thing from the start of the weekend to the end of the weekend, and it was multiple colours of brown and black and smudged on nasty by the end of that weekend. It was quite the idea, though, to wear something pristine to Rainbow Serpent and then just emerge with whatever you emerge with, little stains and love-based and otherwise. Yeah, so that was great. Anyway, I digress. Disco Inferno. Again, the thing broke itself. The horizontal spinner didn't do anything. But that's robot fighting. The thing's prototypes. It's not easy to do. Anyway, brings us to Chomp. The first thing I noted when I was looking at the intro thing was that there's no lateral stiffness in the hammer. And I thought, well, I hope that it doesn't get a hit and get kinked over in a funny way, which didn't happen. But what I didn't see was the liability of having a laterally unstable support for the hammer, was that when it hit the other robot, the actual hammer part slid to one side, which then... caused the supports to spring up elastically and store up energy, which then dragged the robot over. It almost acted like a high side in motorcycling. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. You go around and load up the rear suspension in a funny way, usually by braking at the wrong time, and then as you start to go upwards, you load up the suspension and then it spits you off the other side, and you usually do a big tumble and hurt yourself terribly. So it reminded me a lot of that. So there are a lot of things about Chomp last year I didn't really like. There are a lot of things about Chomp this year I didn't really like. But hey, man, she's hanging in there. The big one for me, though, and I'll bring this up again, is the LiDAR-based fan situation. Brilliant idea. These kinds of onboard, what's the best way to put it? Assisted intelligence systems. So systems that it doesn't entirely do all the work for you, but you say, okay, whenever you get a good shot, fire. It waits until it gets a good shot, and it fires. Brilliant. That's much better than you having to get there and do it from a distance across the arena, probably on the wrong side of the bot, can't really see it. Great idea. Now, the one thing that I saw being a huge problem was latency. And it is. Digital systems, every time, it's a pain in the bum. The processor overhead, you can't have one little hiccup. If you've got very small amounts of buffer and low latency, you can't have any little hiccups or the whole thing dies in the bum. So, I mean, we see it with audio all the time. It'd be lovely to have a virtually real-time response, but you get pops and clicks and cracks and carry on. The only way to make systems robust is to, that, and sometimes just the processing time that things take is also a big deal, and that adds to latency. But between those two factors, and there are probably others, I'm no computer scientist either, there are probably others, but between those two, it's more than enough to introduce huge amounts of latency. So, what was the other guy? The guy with the arms, what was his name? Walden Overlord. Same situation. Brilliant idea. Arms for control, and you know what I mean? Have that sort of thing. But you see it on the intro for them. They lift their arm, and it's like, dum, dum. It's like, that is a lot of latency, you know, for a robot. So you're going, that's a lot. You go, boom, that's a lot to miss by. As someone who was a musician from a very early age, who then transitioned into digital music systems, when you're used to something being immediately responsive and it stops being immediately responsive, and there's then this unknown variable as to the latency between the effect you want, between you initiating it and the effect you want, then it's very hard to get used to. It's a skill you can get used to, but it's not easy to do. Whether or not these gents would be able to do it for a system like that on the fly per bot, I don't think so. So again, latency is a huge factor in all digital systems. But again, Chomp won it. Incredibly difficult decision from the judges. I don't know how I would have judged that. I wasn't privy to the discussion. I would have liked to be, to have been. But so it was a very difficult one to discuss. But again, the other little note here is just that the center of gravity was too high on Chomp. I mean, that's the sort of thing that I know what you were trying to do, but it was a very big robot, with the gas canisters, or I believe it must have been gas. It was a very big robot. Anyway, match 10. Hypershock versus Ultraviolent. It's the year of the drum spinner. The year of the drum spinner. There's no two ways about that. Now, Hypershock. What's to say? It's a totally different robot. It's Hypershock 2 in the same way as, what's it called? Oh, I forget. Daddy-Daughter Day 2. Hypershock versus Ultraviolent. Ultraviolent just got itself absolutely destroyed. I'm really, really interested to see what happens with Hypershock this year. At some point, we're going to see a drum spinner come into contact with a horizontal spinner, and I look forward to that. I'd like to see what happens when Bronco starts getting pieces of itself torn apart and torn off. That should be very exciting. And overall, this should be a very destructive year for robot fighting. Once this Hypershock character really gets in, I like this guy. I don't know. He was unhappy last year. You could see how seriously he was taking it and how much of an opportunity he knew it was. And it didn't work out for him. And I know that feeling, when you want it to work and it doesn't work, and it looks like you're just a jerk a bit to the untrained eye, but I don't think he was. I think he was just disappointed. And I'm very glad to see him this year, that he's come back for a big, hard, fast year again in 2016. So, match 11. Dropping bombs on your moms. Complete Control versus Bombshell. Okay, Complete Control. The whole what's in the box thing, I really was confused and concerned that there was going to be a little surprise in the box, but it was just homage. That's totally fine, as Kenny pointed out. At this point, I'd love to mention again that the commentary team, I think it's been mentioned plenty of times for everybody, but I'd like to just make sure everybody on Earth knows the similarities between the commentary team we have here and the two gents in Dodgeball. What was his name? Cotton and I don't know, Gary Cole and Michael Bateman. And yeah, I feel like obviously Kenny's not so laid back and stonery, but I would have loved it if they could have got Gary Cole to do the Gary Cole part in Battlebots. Imagine how that would have been. Get him to do his Birdman. Oh, Harvey Birdman, that'd be the way to do it. Okay, but I digress, and that was not to be, so yeah. A lifter with fire. It was a really good battle. It was a shockingly good battle. I haven't seen something that entertaining since a few battles ago when I said that was more entertaining than I thought it'd be. Yeah. People didn't like dirty tricksters. Freudian. People didn't like the guys from Complete Control because they were painted as dirty tricksters. It says dirty tricksters. I was reading it, sorry. They weren't dirty tricksters. They read the rules. Entanglement weapons weren't banned. And I don't know how else to put that. I don't know how to put that to make people feel better about themselves for booing them. They booed them again this year. They're the bad guys, the poor buggers. All they did was follow the rules. If the organisers were too daft to actually go over the rules and think about how people might use them, that's not the competitor's fault. Although that said, it may have been considered a little dodgy to not go up to the scrutineers and say, "Hi, we're having a thought, right? Because we're not sure how we're going to actually win against a, horizontal spinner. Can we entangle?" And they would have said yes or no. And they would have said no. So that was dodgy. I get it. But equally, the rules were shitty. Lifters virtually never work. Because the center of gravity of the entire situation moves too far forward. So all you can really do is have all of the mass of the robot right up the back of the robot. And then it'll sort of want to fall backwards anyway. And somehow try and just get it to get in there and pivot right up the back as well. So as when it pivots, it's pivoting the mass of the other robot straight up closer to above its own center of gravity. Of course, that's easier said than done. A hell of a lot easier said than done. So yeah, when Complete Control just grabbed Bombshell and shoved it up in the air and used probably the first ever fire weapon that I've ever seen in Battlebots that really, really worked and stayed on somebody and got the other opponent to catch on fire in a really... Damn, that motherfucker got stopped because of the fire, not because of any other damage. Very well done. Very well done. I was surprised. Yeah. But look, I think it should have been called a knockout. That's the only thing I would have said a little bit different. Not that it was an easy decision for the judges, so they made the right decision in my opinion. Good for them, but I don't see how that wasn't a knockout. But whatever. Match 12. Bite Force 2 versus Mohawk. Mohawk's just another one of those bots, it's like, guy, it's good that you're here. It's good that you've got fire involved in your bot. And hey, it moves around. The Tombstone's got to have something to destroy, I suppose. Yeah. Bite Force is a drum spinner, vertical spinner thing now. It's not a drum spinner. It's a vertical spinner. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense that its name is Bite Force and it doesn't have a clamping thing. But whatever, that's fine. I think that if there's a significant redesign, and the type of robot is completely different. So if you went from, one particular chassis to a different physical chassis, but it's overall the same design of robot, you don't have to rename it. You make it a totally different type of robot. If you make it a similar type of robot, rather, and then, but it's clearly a different build, and it's a different design of that same overall layout, well, that can be a 2, But if it's a totally different type of robot, then I think you probably need to give it a different name, because it gets very confusing, Well, there was, Overhaul and Overhaul and Overhaul, and there was Bite Force and Bite Force. And there was, you know what I mean? It's a bit much. So yeah, it went to Bite Force, last year's champion. No one's surprised there. I wasn't surprised anyway. They're all here. Match 13, Chromefly versus Bucktooth Bill. That was a weird judge's decision, don't you think? Her thing never moved. Like it was another drum spinner though, which is, again, it's the year of the drum spinners. It's happening. I think there was a distinct lack of them last year. I mean, surely more than one person's gone, nobody noticed there's another type of robot. So it's good to see some back. Or some in this tournament, to see that type of design back, you know. Yeah, so she lost, didn't spin, but, I don't know. Kind of a nothing battle, really. But Chromefly came out. That was George Matus. It turns out it's Metus. Matus. That's right. I've spelled it out phonetically for myself so I could spell it, but it's Matus, because I think I went through this last time. But yeah, it just broke immediately. They didn't, I mean, do you guys test this shit? I know this guy's 18, right? And more power to him. He's built a robot at 18. But you need to at least bury some wood in the ground in a concrete thing with like a pole and come out and try and chop the wood. Got to do something, you know? If the robot breaks from hitting something, no good. You got to not do that. But anyway, that happened. Brings to match 14. So that was Splatter versus Warrior Clan. Warrior Clan Dragon was the drone. Drones are a bit shit, aren't they? You know, they don't really. You're using weight in a really silly way. I'm yet to see one be terribly effective. Prove me wrong, guys. There's, you know, please. I'd love to see myself get proven wrong on that one, but I'm not. I don't know. The drone thing. I just don't think we're there yet. I don't think there's. They're deliberately crippled because you can't use entanglement weapons, and you can't really carry enough fire. You can't use projectile weapons. You can't. You see where I'm going with this? You couldn't drop a bunch of like a small pellet of flaming what's it called, thermite on top of a bot. That'd be against the rules. Like, if you could do those sorts of nasty things, like if you could do really nasty shit, like have an auto thermite dispenser drop a thing, and they were like, you had 10 shots, and you could drop 10 little golf ball sized things of thermite. Now there's a drone weapon. Till they let you do that, I don't see much point of drones. Something like that, you know, or just a bunch of magnets. Magnets are heavy. Thermite's pretty freaking heavy too, but you know. Anyway. Point it, yeah, Warrior Clan won it, destroyed it, it splattered. Yeah, very interesting design, but it was, I mean, it's the same thing with Warrior Clan last year. Ground clearance is a massive factor. It's so low, flippers can't engage it. They can't physically get underneath it to engage it as a target. If you can't engage it, you can't engage it. You can't harm it. So yeah, match 14, Warrior Clan. Match 15, Stinger versus Nightmare. Listen, I think you all are starting to understand my feelings about Nightmare. People carry on like it has this reputation for being this fearsome, terrifying robot. And it's like, okay, I get it's elegant to look at. It looks like it looks like something that the Cybermen would use to eviscerate the humans on the way through the factory. I get it. It just isn't very good at destroying other robots. One of the main factors here is all you have to do is trip a robot over. If it can't self-right, it's done for. And shock horror, what happened to Nightmare? Exactly what happened to Nightmare last season. Exactly what happens to Nightmare when it comes up against anything more powerful than the tiniest little mini micro harassment bot. It just gets flipped over. And that's it. It's the end of the story. So, yeah, Stinger won. But that said, Stinger having won brings him up against Tombstone, I believe, in the round of 32. So, enjoy that. Oh, God. Farouk this time is, the hills are alive with the sound of murder. And here to Union jack you up. Okay. That's fine. Overworld and Overlord versus Warhead. We all know how I feel about Warhead. Again, one of the most overrated bots. The guys are into it as an art project, it seems like, as much as they're into it as a battle bot, and that's fine. It's got a big dopey head on it. It was able to triumph against Walden Overlord because Walden Overlord was the flimsiest robot that has ever been constructed for use in BattleBots. It wasn't for that. It was almost sad, to watch it in the way its ligaments got burned and the way its joints got melted and its arms became paralyzed, and it was dragging them around like a lame person off a battlefield. It was really upsetting in a way. Like watching a child get mauled by a crocodile. It was really kind of not great viewing. It was also kind of awesome viewing. There was something very compelling about it, because in the back of your mind you're going, oh, nothing's getting hurt. I can root for the thing that I shouldn't be rooting for. I can root for the big scary thing. Hey, kill it! Destroy it! Take its guts out! Kill it! No problem. No moral problems with that whatsoever. I don't have to be on the side of the underdog anymore. Because screw the underdog. This is amazing. Robot fighting frees us from our, not just preconceived ideas, but the tropes of our lives. The constant, repeating, same, again, workaday, fiction bullshit that we again and again make our shit conform to. Every piece of fiction has to have something to overcome. There has to be character growth. We have to make sure that when a hero dispatches the bad guy, he himself doesn't ever get to harm them. It has to be done in this other way. Now that you know what I mean? It has to be because the bad guy was so bad that even after the good guy tried to make peace, he came at him anyway and he just sidesteps and the bad guy goes off a cliff. That's how the good guy kills the bad guy. We're free of that with BattleBots. We don't need to worry about that. We can just be in it for a good show. That stupid little one got destroyed by the much bigger one. What a good show. I love this show. Oh, let's watch it again, Timmy. Let's bring your sister in. Oh, I know she's too young. It doesn't. This is just, you know what I mean? It's a family affair, even though big things are killing small things. It's beautiful. But yeah, again, as I was saying in the Chomp section, it's just too much latency at this point. Brilliant idea, but perhaps one arm instead of a shield arm and a bashy arm, because that bashy arm didn't seem like it ever worked. It didn't seem like it really ever wanted to go. I don't know if it was two separate systems, if it was a power problem, or if it was, two completely independent control systems. The way I think he described it was like it was one bot with another bot on top, but I don't know if he described it was two bots on top. Either way, the attacking arm just didn't happen. So that was a bit sad. But yeah, heck of a good thing. +1 anthropomorphization points. I'm having no fun at all saying that word. But yeah, so that's it. In terms of the fights next round. So next week's matches, we've got Rotator versus Witch Doctor, which should be very interesting. It looks like it's Witch Doctor in there. It looks like the new Witch Doctor's pole thingy. So that'll be a very interesting match, although I don't see much in the way of big damage being done to Witch Doctor. This is the bot, after all, that when Tombstone tried to confront it, 6 guns a-blazing, head-on, it did not do well. It bounced all across the arena, so I would say Rotator better have its I's and Q's dotted, crossed, T's crossed rather, before it tries anything like that, but I would say that'll be a Witch Doctor victory. Rex versus Red Devil. I have no idea how to prepare for this, or how to pick this. Red Devil's something of an unknown quantity at this point, and Rex was a bit of a wreck last year, so again, not much I can say there. Overhaul versus Cobalt. Now this should be an interesting match. If Cobalt's half the horizontal spinner that it could be, we'll see a severe test of Overhaul. We'll see how long the tracks last and that sort of thing. I'd be very interested in this match either way. I don't really have a winner to pick. If I was forced to, I'd just have to go with Overhaul. They've got too much experience at this sort of thing, and they build bots that work and work very well. So I would never bet against Overhaul. in a match like that, so I'd have to choose Overhaul. Mobius versus Brutus. This is an interesting one. I would probably have to go with Brutus. But again, I don't know. It's Mobius as a horizontal spinner, a full body spinner. They can destroy themselves. Brutus may be very well built. It's impossible to say at this stage. It really is impossible to say. We've also got what's the next one here? Sawblaze versus Razorback. Now, again, two completely unknown quantities. I'd like to know more about either of them, but I don't like the way Sawblaze is constructed with its wheels up the back and whatnot, and a big wide thing. I don't know how easy that's going to be to control. With all that momentum up the front, that as it tries to steer, it has to try and move that and then stop it moving again. But again, an interesting match. I don't know how to pick that one. And a Mega Tenta, I think that's how you say it, versus Poison Arrow. I think if my thought that this might be the year of the drum spinner comes true, Poison Arrow, if it's half the bot that what's it called, Minotaur is, then we'll see some interesting stuff come out of this match. And I'd hate to see another Plan X where she just gets destroyed again in the first round, very early on. I wouldn't like to see that, but again, I think this drum spinner thing might be a thing this year, so we'll see how we go. And then there is Lockjaw versus Yeti. So that looks like, I'm not sure what the situation is with Yeti exactly. Lockjaw looks like it's been pretty much completely redesigned, rebuilt from the ground up. And Yeti seems to be a drum spinner. We'll see how it goes. It seems to have some sort of jaws to get you, jaws I should say, to draw you into the to the drum spinner. But again, don't know how to choose this one. A match like this all comes down to which bot lives, in a way, which one was better built. And in a very real sense, Lockjaw is the one, therefore, that I would put my money on. It's it's hard to place your money on a rookie versus someone who's done this for a while when it comes to reliability. So for the last match, it looks like it's going to be Ghost Raptor versus Son of Waiachi, which is the horizontal spinner versus horizontal spinner matchup that I've been talking about this whole time. So hopefully we'll see how all that goes. But I have to say, I'm not too confident that Ghost Raptor's blade looks that much better this year than it was last year. Maybe it's been changed in some sort of internal design way or another, but it doesn't really seem very different. So that's worth a look. Be a good match to see. I've got to put my money on Son of Waiachi there, but what can you do? So the other thing, now we've got a few bots missing. So there's Lycan Scorpius, who went under the screws in the very first display match, in the first few moments of that display match. Then we've got Praying Mantis with its incredibly strange walking thing, it looks like. Ambush, Road Rage, Bad Kitty, who was in the thing at the start. Basilisk, the Dentist, and Helichopter, an Invader who looked like he had suffered some damage. But I'd really like to see the Dentist come through and give us some what for when it comes to this. There's another drum spinner. It's hard to call this anything but the year of the drum spinner. Join us next week, and we'll go through all this again. And if you've got any requests or any other information you'd like to know, or if there's anyone out there who'd like to pass on my name or number or any information to the Battlebots people, please do so. I'm very interested in interviewing anybody or speaking Skype calls or anything like that, getting them on the program here. So anybody who'd like to be involved in the program in that capacity, please do get in contact. And like and subscribe if you enjoy the videos, and please continue to speak your mind, speak freely. And this has been the Free Speech Zone. I'm Ian Con. Thanks, guys.